Question of making a decision of we're building or not. It's a question of when, the decision of when do we start the process, because the South African government has got its energy plan, the IRP, the Integrated Resource Plan, which makes room for 2,500 megawatts for nuclear. However, the process is building up to ultimate procurement have really been long drawn out, partly because of the mistakes that were done during the 9.6 gigawatt project that was so-called Russian project that President Zuma's cabinet was procuring from Russia, and the subsequent court overruling of that deal. A lot of caution now had to be adopted in moving, and that caution has led to, I would say, undue delays, to the extent that a lot of even serious contenders that would have probably invested in this program have decided it's not going to happen. For example, the Chinese company called State Nuclear Power and Technology Company, SNPTC, was had offices in Sandton. They had a big contingent of staff here because they were waiting for government to decide so that they can put a bid. They have relocated today. They are no longer they don't have offices in Sandton anymore because the project is moving slow. Now it is going to be slower because of the economic situation, because you need money. Even if you can get serious investors from outside, but government must put some guarantees in place. And with a battered economy that we have now because of COVID, one, and secondly because of load shedding, it will be a tall order at this point.
If we now get through this procurement phase that is holding us up, what will then be the process and timeline?
Then it will be, so if we finish the procurement process and contracting, then of course government must designate what is called the owner operator. By law in this country, the owner operator is Eskom, which makes it even more difficult given their red balance sheet, which is public knowledge. So government may have to decide to designate a new company, starting it from scratch and giving it the legal permission to operate, to own and operate, and probably transfer that responsibility from out of Eskom, out of that balance sheet, and put a new balance sheet. I don't think that's a long process. Then the next step would be to site, so-called getting a site, nuclear site license, which is a responsibility currently lying with Eskom, and the permitting of that site, that site license is issued by a national nuclear regulator. That also is a no-brainer if all requirements are satisfied. When I was still working for the regulator, we presided over the licensing of a site it's called Taspent. It's in somewhere near Cape St. Francis in the Eastern Cape. I recall that just after my departure, the regulator rejected that license because Eskom had not provided a certain crucial information. But the window was still open for them to resubmit. So assuming that they follow up on that and satisfy the requirements of the regulator, the next step is construction. And as I said, construction can take anything between 43, 60 to 72 months.
I was quite interested in you saying that we need to move our nuclear away from Eskom.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's trust issues, and can they deliver? Do you then see it falling into a private type of a setup, or will it still be a state-owned dual enterprise?
In our law, our legislation, unless we change, nuclear is still strongly state-owned. But that does not mean we shouldn't change. That does not mean we cannot change. We've seen successful nuclear countries such as the United States with a liberalized economy and living the market to determine its own prices, therefore privatizing completely energy, including nuclear. But equally, countries such as France, with nuclear in state hands, have done very well to produce stable electricity. Countries such as China, the Russian Federation, all state-owned. But Finland, for example, is always 50-50 or 50-40. They give, private company a stake, private investors a stake. I would say, and I would argue that given our difficult economic situation, if we want to get nuclear going at all, we need to allow for more private participation. We can keep the state, if it can afford to, at just 51% majority stake. And then the 49% you give it to private investors.
Are you positive, Prof, that we have the skill set in the country to actually go full nuclear?
If you asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have said yes and yes. But we have data. And the ESCOM leadership has actually came out very clear in public press conferences to say one of their biggest concerns with the power plant is the skills exodus. Now, obviously, that was precipitated by people's concerns about working for a company that is always in the news every day for bad reasons. You won't want to work for for such an organization. As a result, most people have sought for greener pastures. Very experienced people. The United Arab Emirates has just commissioned 2 units and still building 2 more. Finland is building. I know of a gentleman who used to sit on the board of a nuclear regulator when I was there, who had to resign and leave and worked for the power plant in Finland. Then he was even further poached by the United Kingdom, who have started building a new nuclear power plant now. Saudi Arabia is also thinking very much going that route, and they have already started to recruit people. So our experienced staff has left.